Today, Lauren, Michaela, Megan, and I will be presenting on LSVT Big exercise for enhancing activity for individuals with Parkinson's. Lee Silverman voice treatment, first coined as LSVT Loud, was originally a protocol designed to improve the loudness of the voices of people with Parkinson's disease in 1995. And due to numerous amounts of evidence backing the effectiveness of the program, a new program was created in 2005 called LSVT Big that focuses on body movement and addressing the hypokinesia and bradykinesia seen in Parkinson's patients. LSVT Big is a standardized, intensive program that encourages patients to move using bigger, faster, and more precise movements during progressive high-intensity training. The goal is to restore normal movement amplitude and alter an individual's perception of movement execution. Emphasis is placed on key principles of motor learning such as salience, multiple repetitions, high intensity, and progressive complexity. And in order to become a certified LSVT Big physical therapist, you must complete a 16-hour course and cost between $300 to $600.
Overall, there is generally a lack of high-quality evidence due to the limited number of studies. However, based on what we found, there are favorable outcomes associated with LSVT Big programs. There is one systematic review and meta-analysis which reported the standard 4-week LSVT Big program to be more effective than general exercise, home exercise programs, or Nordic walking. The UPDRS, or Unified Parkinson's Disease Rating Scale, is a common outcome measure used for people with PD, and improvements were seen in that measure along with improvements on the timed up-and-go test and 10-meter walk test lasting up to 6 months. The review also included one study that compared the standard 4-week program to a condensed 2-week protocol rather than alternative treatments, in which they found no significant differences between the normal and condensed LSVT Big programs. A couple cohort studies noted significant improvements on walking endurance, speed, and balance, measured by the outcome measures listed. These studies discussed the effect of LSVT Big to help patients internalize cueing strategies and decrease the negative impact of hypokinesia on mobility and cognitive performance. Case studies included noted improvements in bed mobility, gait speed, standing balance, and dynamic balance, quantified by the FGA, TUG, FRT or functional reach test, and bed mobility. One RCT we found compared LSVT Big to a general exercise program consisting of treadmill training and seated trunk and limb exercises. There were significant improvements in both groups on the UPDRS, BDI or Beck Depression Inventory, and MFIS or Modified Fatigue Impact Scale. This suggests that an alternative program of varying activities but the same length and number of sessions may be just as effective. Ultimately, while LSVT Big seems to result in improvements across multiple outcome measures and functional tasks, there is mixed evidence to confirm if LSVT Big is more effective than other exercise programs of the same time commitment and intensity.
LSVT Big consists of 16 one-hour sessions that are completed over 4 weeks with an LSVT certified PT. Apart from the supervised sessions, patients perform a home exercise program done twice daily on the days that they don't come in for PT, and these sessions typically last around 15 to 20 minutes. Earlier PT sessions typically consist of more therapist cueing and then progress to self-monitoring by the patient in the later sessions. And each exercise must be done at least 8 times at 80% of their maximal effort, or 8 out of 10 on the VAS. And half of the movements in the program are standardized, while the others depend on the functional activities of the patient. The first half of the treatment is broken up into 3 tasks. So task 1 involves maximum sustained movements in seated, so a big stretch floor to ceiling and a big stretch side to side, and then these are held for 10 seconds and repeated for 8 reps each. And then task 2 is repetitive and directional movements in standing, and these include a step forward, a step sideways, a step backwards, a forward rock and reach, and a sideways rock and reach. And then task 3 trains functional component movements, and so the patient identifies 5 ADLs they typically perform, and then the patient and PT select one aspect of each ADL and then train that component, performing 5 reps for each of the 5 movements that they select. And then the second half of the treatment is focused on adding these trained movements into functional activities. Overall, there's a lack of current high-quality evidence on LSVT big. Most of the studies had very few participants, so we would like to see more participants included in future studies, as well as longer follow-up periods to determine the effectiveness of LSVT big in the long term. And the current literature also focuses on mild to moderate stages of Parkinson's, so future research is needed on how LSVT big may benefit patients in the later stages of Parkinson's disease. And then group therapy is another area that needs more research to determine how LSVT big could be incorporated into a group therapy and the effectiveness it may have compared to individual sessions, since there would be the added benefit of social support by other patients with Parkinson's disease.
So for our clinical bottom line, we found that LSVT big can be an extremely effective therapeutic exercise program for people with Parkinson's disease. And the main improvements we saw in our studies was an improvement in amplitude of movement and quality of movement. Patients were also able to improve their dual task demands, so things like walking and talking improved. And in the improvements that we saw, gait parameters were probably the most notable. So things like speed increased with the timed up and go, step length also increased, and dynamic balance increased as well. And then there were also additional improvements with range of motion doing activities of daily living. And then LSVT seems to be more effective than general exercise programs. General exercise programs are still beneficial for patients with Parkinson's disease to be participating in if LSVT big is not accessible, but if it is, they should be participating in this LSVT program because the cueing strategies lead to improved perception of the amplitude of their movement. And it's believed that those cueing strategies really help the patient internalize their kinesthetic awareness and where they are, so that when they're no longer in the program, they can take those large movements and cues that the therapist gave them and translate it to their daily life. And it should be said that the LSVT program probably has its greatest effect in patients with mild to moderate Parkinson's disease, simply because there were not a lot of studies involving people with severe or end stages of Parkinson's disease. So it's probably not appropriate to start this program with people who are later in their Parkinson's disease. The main education points that we want our patient and their caregivers to understand is that an LSVT program requires a lot of time and physical effort. It's 4 days a week for an hour a day for 4 weeks, and that's not including transportation time. And with that timing, we wish our patients would be on their on phase when they're participating in an LSVT program for the most benefit. And since LSVT is such a frequent exercise program, insurance may not cover all sessions, and so it may become a financial burden on the patient and their families. So if they are unable to complete the program or after they have completed the program, it's important to stress to the patient and their caregivers that continued exercise and movement will still be extremely beneficial to them in improving the quality of their life and function. So if the caregiver sees their loved one performing an ADL at home, really cueing them and encouraging them to still continue with those big movements and motions so that the patient can maintain the improvements that they earned in the LSVT program. And then here are our references.